and welcome to our lovely speakers. Uh, which of you's, I should have asked this a moment ago, which of you's going to start?
I'll let Rob go. I think is
You let me start.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, well, do you want to introduce yourself, Rob?
yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, my name's Rob Ritchie, and I've been into, I suppose, renewables now for 2.5 years, and I don't work anymore, or I don't go to a place to work anymore. Still do some work from home. In my past, I used to be a chemistry teacher, and I've always been interested in, I suppose, computing, but also I've been interested in I suppose, in the move towards renewables. And the thing that really got me started was back in 2022 when all the prices went up, the energy prices, particularly the electricity prices. And I thought, right, it's about time you got yourself some solar panels. And so I managed to get some solar panels just before the rush started because lots of people were thinking the same way. And thought, solar panels, okay, how do they go up? How do they work? What do I need there? I'd like a battery as well because I've heard that's a good thing to have. This was my level of knowledge 2.5 years ago. And I think something like 2 or 3 months after I first inquired, I had solar panel installation and they were connected in something called an inverter, which converts DC into AC for the house. And I had a battery. And while I was at it, I also had a car charger installed. It's outside the house. And I thought, right, I'm all sorted now. And from the software that came with the battery or with the inverter, I could then monitor exactly what was going on, which is really, really good, really useful. And that was my starting point. Now, 6 months later, I thought, I wonder if I could get some more solar panels on my roofs. And so initially I had 15 put on the roofs, and I'm on one of these houses has got a hip roof, so they're all pointing in different directions. And I managed to get another 10 put on. I've got 25 panels, all sorts of directions, mostly east and west, with some to the south. And I found that's worked well. The first summer I had all this lot working, in June, I was sometimes getting, say, 55 kilowatt hours of electricity. Now, bear in mind that to run my house, I need about 6 or 7. I could have run part of my street just with the amount that I was generating. But a great thing with solar is that you can export excess solar back to the grid. And when I first started this, the prices of electricity were through the roof. And there were some days where I was earning over £10 a day on exporting. The first June, I earned £300, which is absolutely amazing. Now, the electricity prices have come down a lot since then, but it's still a big earner. It means that during the summer, I can build up a balance that gets me through the winter. Then my overall energy bill is either where it's very close to zero. This last year, I made £60 altogether, and I've got a heat pump as well. So I think solar is the best, it's the most cost efficient thing that you can do to get into renewables. Very cost effective. What did I learn? If you want to do this, number one rule is get as many solar panels fitted on your roofs as you can cram on your roofs. Lesson number two is do this all in one go, or you'll end up with, like me, where to have the extra panels going up, scaffolders. And it's scaffolders, the stock fee seems to be £800 a face. So you could be paying £2,500 on 3 faces. So get as many put up. If you've got an extension, then get some put up on the extension, particularly if it's south facing, but east and west are not bad at all. As I found out, particularly east, because it tends to be sunnier in the mornings and the afternoons. So that's really where I got into this. And then where I evolved from it, I thought, right, what about a heat pump? I don't really need a heat pump. And I found out there was someone living just down the road from me who was quite a geek into heat pumps. And I said, do you mind if I came down to have a look at your heat pump? He showed it all to me. And I said, well, who did you get installed for this? And he said, oh, someone called Damon Blakemore. And I said, are they any good? And this was Mick. And he says, best installer in Yorkshire. And so I contacted Damon, who was really overjoyed to meet me, no doubt.
Pleasure.
And I got Damon to do my, to do my heat pump. But that took from start to finish, takes a little bit of time. Now, I don't know, Damon, do you want to say a little bit about what you have to do, like the heat loss bit and
I think one of the main things in getting a heat pump in something like this is the performance, and with that, with you getting that money back this year, like so your energy bills were nothing really, is being a big part of the heat pump performance as well. And being able to use less of that energy to heat and do your hot water in your home. So having that bit and getting a good installer it is key to tying it all in together. The good control on the heat pump, the apps, the availability of being able to use an API on that to pull it in to something, so you can get everything programmed and running together. Rob will touch a bit more on the API. But that's key as well. So it like all integrates as one system, and you can't just be willy-nilly with it. If you want it to work in harmony, you want it to work right, you have to do your due diligence on that. I'm kind of new to getting it all to integrate together. That's where I've been learning from like Rob, which I quite enjoy from her. I've got a few customers that I learn from and take a lot of information from. So yeah, it's there's quite a bit to go through when you get an heat pump. With Rob's, we had to have planning, which took quite a while. We had to get DNO approval, which took a bit. We did certain upgrades in there. We upgraded the suspended floor because it was had a cellar below it, so we used insulation to do that. So there's all little things that you can bring it down. Insulation's not really that important, but it can help lower the load. It's a balance against cost and what you're going to save. So it can be quite a tricky process to get it all going together.
yeah, on the insulation, because I know this is something people ask about. quite a lot, is my house is nearly 100 years old. It's a big three-bed detached, and I've got as much loft insulation up in the loft as can fit really, all courtesy of B&Q and just sort of rolling it all out myself. And like Damon said, there's no underfloor heating. I wish there was, but there isn't. But we have now got this like some insulation under the ground floor. Cavity wall insulation, I have got it, but 100 years ago, the cavities were not very big. So we're probably looking at a couple of inches. So on that front, cavity wall insulation is there, but it isn't brilliant. I know that. But
How have you
go on.
how have you changed? How has the heat pump helped you with your how have you integrated all yours together? Because yours works in quite good harmony, doesn't it? With your PV, your battery size, and your heat pump. How did you get that into to start working together? And what's your like procedure for that? Do you load your batteries first and then pull from your batteries while at the same time using electric for your heat pump? Or does your heat pump pull from the battery? Do you load hot water at certain times of day? You know, look, because you're on a variable
Well,
tariff, we're able to load off, aren't we?
yeah,
That's a big thing with the heat pump. If you've got PV, you've got solar, and you're on a variable tariff like an Agile or something like that, loading your hot water and loading cylinders at certain hours where you're off peak, you know, you'll take a hit on performance, but you might only charge you 60, 70p to load your hot water cylinder. So
yeah. I get
or timing it to run in the middle of the day where PV is going to be more likely generated between a certain few hours. So that there's quite a bit you can do with timings if you've got PV to pull it in at certain times to amplify the performance on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I think the key to it is, I mean, solar is obviously great when the sun's shining, but when the sun goes in, you're taking from the grid. That's
Yes,
where the battery comes in.
yeah. So battery
So,
support is
yeah,
big in that.
yeah. And the easiest way to understand the bottom line is that if you do have a battery, then the battery gets charged during the day from the solar. Excess solar goes to the grid. Then in the evening, and hopefully overnight, the battery is then feeding the house. So you're not drawing from the grid.
Right, yeah. And you set all that up what on your on the app, do you?
Well,
You
you can
give
you
anything,
can
wasn't it?
you can set it up through the the software that comes with the inverters and the battery system. And I'll show you that in a moment, what that can do. But my setup, it is done through the Home Assistant, the way I've got it set up. And I'll show you that as well. And then I think it's a little bit more obvious how it all fits together.
Yeah, I think Home Assistant would be good for people to see too. We touched on it earlier that
Yeah.
that's a way of being able to control every aspect, pulling in different information from there. But as I said, it's not for the faint-hearted as such as it. It's you've got
No.
a bit of understanding, although there is a lot of forums out there that will help you on that.
Yeah. Let's just see if I can get up, just get the right area. Where is it? I need to get the okay, I know where I am now. Where have you all gone? I'm over the top now, aren't I? Okay, that's there. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see some graphics?
That's come through. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Now, my battery system is a give energy battery system. And I've got two give energy batteries that both are 8.2 kilowatt hours. And I've got an inverter. That's what my inverter looks like. And that converts the DC, because the panels up here, they're generating the DC, which has to be converted into alternating current for the house. Now on this graphic here, a bit hard to see why I'm getting some stuff coming from the panels, but the important thing is it's dark now, and the battery here is feeding the house. And there's a little bit going into the grid. There's nothing going from the grid into my house. It's dark. So that's effectively what I want. Now, can I just refresh this screen? Just hang on with me. I've just refreshed the screen. Now, this is the big graphic in the middle is what has happened to me today. Is that big enough so you can all see? Now, I'll just take you through my day, okay? This here was, what's the time? That was midnight. And at midnight, my battery had 13% in. It's not much, but look at what's happened overnight to my battery. I've finished up, right up at 97%. Where's that come from? That big blue area here shows the battery gaining charge. And the red area shows that's from the grid. And in fact, the grid import is there. Now the green bit is my heat pump working. That's the heat pump primarily there. And it isn't on continually, but it's not dipping down that often. Now I think, Damon, it's not, what do we call that when it does that?
You what, sorry?
With the heat pump,
Yep.
pump with the green,
When it's defrosting.
it's not actually, well, that may be a defrost, that little peak there. But the bulk of it is the heat pump is drawing energy, then it isn't, then it is, then it isn't, etc. And you can see that happening sort of through the night, because obviously the temperature goes down at night.
And this what you're on at the minute? Is this Home Assistant?
No, it's not
No.
Home Assistant at all. It's just a software with
What
the
from the inverter is it? Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So other people would have this depending on what inverter this would change per inverter.
And all the inverters and batteries, they all have their own software that does a similar thing. So if you've got Give Energy gear, you get this. You've got Grow Watt, you get another one. Solace, you get another one. There's loads of them. So now the interesting thing here is you see when it stopped, it started tailing off with the charging here. And then when it got to here, it stopped. Now, my cheat period, 7p, finishes at 5:30. That's 5:30.
And do you tell that to do that through this software? So to stop at that point?
That is done through, well, I can do, because I can set up something where I say, right, charge between these hours.
Yeah, I think the people are wanting to know how can they tailor that to maximize their benefits, you know?
Well, just
So
from the software itself here, I mean, the way I would do it is I'd look at, say, the inverter area.
Yep.
Then I can set up settings. and I can set up a timed charge and a timed export.
And you'd go that, and that'd then go around your variable tariff, your cheaper rates, and your
Well, what all I
tariff.
can do here, if I go into this here time charge, I can put in here 11, well, it'd be 23:30 to 05:30. Those are the times. And once it gets to 05:30, when it gets beyond that, it then goes back to what they call eco mode. And in eco mode, that's just when the software, I'm not telling it to charge or export at all. It's just looking after itself. And the way that they usually operate is they try to look after themselves while not drawing from the grid at all. So you can do it quite easily here. Now, my inverter is quite an old one, and I've only got the facility to do this for one slot. But there are some inverters now where you can have up to 10 different time periods that you can put in. And you can put in export periods as well. Now, before I got into Home Assistant and PredBat, which I've only got into since for the last year, I was doing everything using this and it worked perfectly well. I'd like to just go back to this power graph here though, because just to tell you the story here, going through, you can see anything that's red is from the grid. Now, once I got to this point, I've got the battery, well here, first of all, the battery discharge, the battery is discharging and you can see the line at the top going down. And then the yellow here is my PV power. It's been a great day today. And as soon as the PV has really kicked in, it's taking over, it's taking over from the battery. And the battery is now being charged from solar. And then for most of the day, it's been on 100%. It's now going down here. And the battery here is being used. And that will continue. What I've found is the battery, the way the software works, or the way that this thing called PredBat works, is that during the evening at the moment, the battery is being almost completely discharged. It's all going back to the grid, ready for the next cheap period coming round when it gets charged again. And to give you an idea on this, when it goes back to the grid, I'm being paid 15p a kilowatt hour. When I'm charging it here, it's 7p a kilowatt hour. So you could say I'm making an 8p per kilowatt hour profit through doing that. Although you do get some losses when you go from AC to DC and back again. But that's roughly what happens. And this is just with the software that comes with the gear. No Home Assistant, etc.
What about the car? How do you integrate that into this?
How's the car work? Well,
That got its own software that you use.
yeah, I use it's all done through my phone. And with this new tariff I've got in on Intelligent Octopus Go, it selects the times it's going to charge my car that are most cost effective for me, but also for the grid. And the beauty of it is that I get 6 hours at night, but if there are times during the day when there's a lot of energy, it's what they call green times. but there isn't much demand for electricity, I will be allocated extra slots at 7p a kilowatt hour for anything during the day. I'll set it up on the phone. I'll plug in the car and I'm then told what these slots are. You can do it a little bit more manually, but if I did it manually, what I'd do is I'd set up charging times for the car. All I'd do is if I wanted to put a certain amount into the car, I'd think, right, how much can I get into the car in a certain time? And I'd use just those within the 6 hours to charge the car. So you do have to have your head screwed on somewhat when you're doing this. At the same time, you get into it. It's actually quite exciting to do it as well. I like it. But I have been on various tariffs. I've just got onto this. Before this, now with Octopus Energy, obviously, I was with something called Octopus Go, which was 8.5p a kilowatt hour. Before that, I was on Cozy, which is one specifically for heat pumps. And that's got 3 charging slots during the day. But I think the idea of 3 cheap slots during the day is some people say, well, you can charge your heat pump up at those times, and then you can ride through the other times. A bit like using gas central heating, where it's on or off. Heat pumps work much more effectively if they're working all the time, just drip feeding the heat in. So that's how my heat pump works. It drip feeds heat in all the way through the day. A little bit on what they call setback overnight, where it's down a little bit temperature-wise, but during the day, all the time, I have 17 degrees during the night and 20 degrees during the day. I think Damon will agree with me here. That is energy-wise, that uses less energy than impulses. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. You want longer running times. You want to get that compressor to ramp down and fan and run at um a low input power. I think the Visma one goes down to about 400 watts. Your problem with turning them on and off as such as you're getting spikes, compressor ramps up, and then you're using more electric in them times.
Yeah.
That comes down to a good design and a good key, but um yeah, and you just let that run, don't you? You don't control it. We've got no
Yeah.
flats in the house. We just let it run, basically. Just keeps the house at 2021, what 24/7 now, Rob?
Yeah. Now let's get to the,
And
okay, I've now gone on to something called Open Energy Monitor, which is, it shows what's happened in well, for the heat pump. And I think Damon, you can probably come in here a little bit as well. I will go back to Home Assistant a little bit later on, but I think this all rolls right the way through. This is for the last 30 days. The blue is energy from the grid, energy in, and that could be from the grid, it could be from the battery, anything. And the yellow is the heat out. So, I mean, today has been the lowest energy in, what I hear, energy in 5.4 kilowatt hours, and I've got 29.5 out. I've got a COP today of 5.42, which means for every unit of electricity that goes into the heat pump, I get 5.42 units out. And the COP that's the way we compare how heat pumps work, isn't it, Damon? Or one
yes,
of the ways.
yeah, So just show them the low energy input that's that's going in. Can you get going in on the day?
Yeah, we'll look
And
at, I
like
won't
the
do it on
how
today. Today's a funny day, really, because it's been less there. I've got 5.4. Let's go back to one of these when it was a bit colder, because today it's got the outside 9.1 C. Well, I had a spell here where it hardly got above freezing. So if I take this day here, 18.9 kilowatt hours in, 87.9 out. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is what's happened during the day. It's a really good one to look at here because it shows just about everything. There's a blue line here, which is the electricity that's being used at 703 watts. Can read it all the way through all the time. That's where the heat pump's just gone down. It's not generating at all for a short period, then it's just come back again. The purple is the outside temperature. So I started off the day here, temperature 2.6 degrees C, and the hottest it got was 6.4. Now, the other little bits we got here, you see this big peak here going up, that's hot water. Now, the way I do the hot water, well, the way I sometimes do it, I do alternate a bit. There's two strategies. You can do it during the day when the air temperature is warmest, because the temperature differential between the air and the heat pump, if the air temperature is warmer, it hasn't got to be heated up so much. So I'm saving a bit of energy there. But you do use a lot more energy to heat up the water. Doesn't take long, maybe half an hour. The red line measures the temperature, what they call the flow temperature. 31.9 degrees here. When the hot water's going through, virtually 50 degrees. That's when the when the water's being heated up, and so on. And the green, that's the return temperature after this has heated up the radiators. Notice how low my running temperature is. That's the temperature going through my radiators, 30 degrees. Very different to gas central heating, where you can hardly touch some radiators, 70 degrees or 80. Much, much more efficient. Beware of the heat pumps that claim they generate at high temperatures, because they're going to use a lot of energy then. And here, this is my temperature in the house, 19.8 degrees. It gets to a maximum of 20.7. It's hardly moving at all through the day. It's partly because I have it operating so that the radiators in every room are on, and so the house builds up a thermal mass. I don't want to be losing heat from one room into another. The other little thing here that's interesting, you see these spikes here? That's defrosting. Because when energy is taken in from the air, it takes the air in, the air going out of the heat pump is at a lower temperature, and the difference in the energy goes into the house. And you do find, particularly at these temperatures, that the back of the heat pump freezes up, and it has to be defrosted at periods of time. The colder the temperature, the more defrost it needs. And that takes energy away from the house. It's a good day to pick this though to show you because it shows every real aspect of what's going on. Do you know if anyone's got any questions here, Damon? If you do you want to add
Yeah, there's been
anything?
quite. No, I think they'd be interested in seeing your home assistant as well, Rob. You're on a roll. You're quite.
Oh
I'm learning.
yeah, I'm going to,
I
yeah.
think yeah, so you can show them how you integrate all that in your home on a daily
Yeah,
use, in your home
yeah.
assistant. I think that'd
Rob,
be.
do you mind if I just ask a question before you move on from
Go
here?
on.
Um, that's a really impressive coefficient of performance that you're
Mm.
getting. And I noted your comment about the low flow temperature. What have you done in the design of the system to make it run so efficiently?
Damon.
Um,
David designed it.
we sized all the emitters correctly.
Right.
So we've got you down to a 40-degree flow at minus 3.7.
Yeah.
So on the weather comp, it'll get up and it'll take flow temperature higher as the days go colder or lower as the days warm up. So low flow temperature has been key. But the system sizing as well with the pipe work, so getting the pipe work correctly sized, allowing the pump to use less energy. The more, if you don't size your pipe correctly, you use more power on the pump. With
Right.
these systems running 24 hours a day as such, that pump power soon adds up. So being able to size correctly and using lower pump power, I think Rob's runs at around 47 watts now, whereas they can run up to 90, 100 watts over a period of time. That
Mm.
soon adds up and will deplete that cop fully.
Yeah.
Getting the system clean, um, and just maintenance really. But the design and the heat loss is key. If you get
Yeah.
things wrong at the start, then you're never going to get it really. It's always you're always playing catch up, and a lot of the time you can't get that back good. So that's the starting point.
Yeah. I've gone to one here where it was colder. At night here, it was -1, -1.2, etc. There's
Right.
more defrost here. And the temperature, this is when it was on setback, 29, around 29 degrees. But up here, 33 degrees, or even here, 33 degrees. So that's higher than the one I was showing you before. But it's higher because the room temperature, sorry, the temperature outside is colder. And it's all run off what's called weather compensation, which is a little sensor outside the house which measures the temperature outside. And all my radiators, they've all got TRVs on. They're all wide open. There's not any thermostat in the house that controls this. It's all done on the heating outside. I know, Damon, you're a great fan, aren't you, of weather comp?
Yeah, like I say, we're not getting them temperature swings. We're just keeping the house constant temperature all day. Room comfort becomes a big thing. It's kind of hard to explain until you've done it, but you don't notice the heat until you come in from the outside. So
Yeah,
that kind of hits you. But once you're in there, your comfort, it's not traditional on and off. You haven't got house temperatures ramping up and coming down. So it's just comfort. And once you're keeping that, you're putting less energy in. I always compare it to like if you're driving a car on a long journey. If you're just driving it correctly, you use less fuel than you will if you're driving in town, or if you're boiling a pan of water and you let that water heat up and then just turn it down to a simmer on a low flame. You're not, instead of letting it go cold and then turning it all back on, you're using less energy over that period of time to maintain the same temperature over that set period. So it's key.
So,
And
yeah. So sorry to interrupt, Damien. I mean, it's impressive that you designed for 40 degrees, but it's actually running quite a bit lower than that, which is pushing the efficiency even higher, isn't it? So,
yes,
but that's yeah,
there's a lot of you've also got a lot of play as well. So when you're doing a heat loss report, there's electrical equipment. He's got two batteries in his porch that'll give off quite a bit. You've got solar gain that you don't really take into account until you start looking at like passive house as such. Um, you've also got ventilation losses. So each ventilation loss is always a guess too. There's only the Sibsy guide that you can go by for them, but you might have a lot of low insulation losses on there. And the fact that after this, we insulated his ground floor. So that brought the heat load down a tad more as well. We went under
Yeah.
floor with rock wool. So there's been quite a few things that can swing that.
Yeah. I think I could do a bit more on the insulation, but the trouble is it's probably going to involve a new roof. I've
But
got
then,
panels on my roofs, and there is a limit.
at some point it doesn't become cost effective to do
No.
that. The amount of money you're going to spend on doing that insulation to what it's actually going to get you on your system is not going to be it's not going to be that great.
Yeah.
It's a fine balance between doing it. 'Cause at the end of the day, you don't want to spend money on needlessly. You
Yeah.
want to you spend money in areas that's effective, that's going to help you reduce your
Yeah.
bills, store more energy as such.
Now,
So
I want this to be something that you can all do your own sort of bit of homework on, really. This is the home screen of Open Energy Monitor. Or now what is the heatpumpmonitor.org if you want the URL. Heatpumpmonitor.org. Now, this is a public site. Anyone can visit this. And if you visit this, got here, Sheffield, Damon, Blakemore. Okay, go across here. I've got a Wiesmann Vitacal 150A, 10 kilowatts, SPF. Right, Damon, SPF, what's that?
Seasonal performance factor, which is just the efficiency over the period that it's been installed.
Yeah, yeah, because COP is the instantaneous difference between the energy in and the heat out. This is spread over the whole year. Now, 5 is tremendous.
And
I
that's
think
combined as well, which is a big point because it's got hot water on there too, hasn't it?
and internal pump,
Yeah.
which they haven't all got. And here you can, what I was showing you before, this little bar chart over here, I click on that. That's what I was showing you. So you can all go in and have a look at my system. And up here, you can look at it by day, by the month, and even where's the whole lot? Is this the whole lot? How do I get the whole lot here? I thought I could get the whole, hold on, back, all year. There you go, that's the year. It's not a bad one to show you here because look at the difference between the summer with the winter. So if I burrow down here, what was my worst day? Here, 33.8 kilowatt hours going in. Let's just click on that. Look at all the defrosts through here. Temperature, 35 degrees. I think that's the highest I've ever seen it. Room temperature, sorry, temperature outside -1.2, nearly continuously. But the energy being used during the day, 1.3 kilowatts. But that's just what happens. If it's colder outside, then the rooms have got, there's more heat loss. And so on that basis, but the energy going out the other end, I'll just get, right, show detail. Yeah, 33 going in, 33.8, 116 kilowatt hours going into the house. But without the heat pump, that's the amount of energy that would have to go into the house. So it's a remarkable difference. So if I go back there and then keep getting this thing coming up here, just go, can I get back here? The other thing I wanted, because this is something you're looking at yourself, is you look at this SPF column, you can order any of this in whatever you want. So you could home in on the COPs, on the makes of heat pumps, whether they're air or ground, all sorts. But if you go down here, see 5 through the fours, lots above 4, threes, and even some down at 2.9. But it means that you can compare different types of heat pump yourself. Is anything above 4 good, Damon? Do you reckon? Or
Yeah, MCS state 2.8. They've just done some tests where on average 2.8's been done against all these electrification of heat. And that's not good. Parity with gas, you're looking at around 3 to get there, but you should be hitting 3.5 and above. That's combined as well for heating and hot water over a 12-month period. I'd say anything less than that and it's poor. And it's not really worth doing if you're getting less than that. But there is some caveats with that. If you've got such a low load house, you're generally going to get a poorer performance because the gap between output and input is much lower. So you will get a less performance, but you also need to look at running costs as well. And if your running costs low and you're getting a poor performance, then it's not in the world. There's only so much you can do with some systems. So you need to take some of it with a pinch of salt sometimes and have a look at the whole picture of what's going on. This is what's good about this website is it can give you anything. You can put your electric pricing in there. You can see what that's pulling on. So you can work out and there's a lot of information you can pull when you click on there. So it's a really good place to look. And if anyone's interested in getting having a heat pump themselves, you can look at some of the installers on there and you can see what area they're in and you can contact them. It's always good that people put them on there because they're doing it to learn. They're doing it to as something to show what they can achieve. So
yeah.
typically these installers will more or less give you a decent job.
And the other thing worth looking at, you see this little flame you've got here. I hover over that, very small, but it's Heat Geek.
Yeah.
If you look at the number of installations up here that are Heat Geek, it tails off a bit. There aren't that many Heat Geeks. Go to the Heat Geek website. You can learn an awful lot. I've learned loads from there.
So Damon, you're third out of 92.
Yeah.
And the top one's a ground source heat pump, which are more efficient anyway.
Yeah, the top one's a ground. The next one from the Netherlands, I actually spoke to him. His is just doing heating. His is doing no hot water.
Okay.
So it was the first one to achieve 5 over 12 months in Europe and in the UK. There's a few more. I've got another one down there at like 4.2, which is Mick Walls. And I've got another quite a few what's just on my own that's not been added to this yet that are sitting between 4 and 4.8. So all roughly around that area. It's I think 4s are becoming the norm.
Well,
I think we should
don't Heat Geek now guarantee 4.2 or something?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but certainly the other thing I've learned is that the chance of you getting a well-performing heat pump, it rests enormously on the installer. Do they know what they're doing? And certainly a lot of the Heat Geeks here are small gangs, sole traders like Damon is, and they work in small groups. Some of these larger people, being Octopus, are getting in big time on the heat pump. here.
But that octopus one there has actually been changed by Urban Plumbers. It's not theirs. They called him in.
But to repair it.
Yeah, because it wasn't performing well, and he's been and done some bits, and that's yeah, it were down in the low freeze when he went. So that it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and the problem with the large ones like this, I mean, Octopus are doing a great job at trying to get a greater number of people having heat pumps, but they're undercutting a lot of I call them experts in this who really know what they're doing, and they have people going out to do a heat loss calculation into houses. Then there's a different group of people that come out and do the actually doing installing. And the bits I've heard is that, I mean, they'll arrive at what, 9 in the morning and they'll leave at 4:30.
Could you pull the open energy monitor up what you've got now? The what's the other piece called? Sorry, my mind's gone now. The home assistant. So we could have a
Right?
look at that and like the heat pump on there and what you've
Yeah.
done to integrate it to
The home assistant, I'd just go into, what I'll do is I'll go into this because this overlaps as well. As people have been asking me, how is everything controlled? Well, everything controlled by this software I've got. It's free software. Home Assistant's free, called Predbat. And this is what happens through the day. And the information is all pulled down through APIs. I mean, I'm on Intelligent Octopus Go, and it's 25.04 in my region through the day, except for these 6 hours when it's 7. Over here, this is the export rate, it's 15 all the way through. And then from where we are now, at the moment, it's exporting. And the reason it's exporting is that the battery at the moment is on 72, and it wants to get down to 4 for 11:30 when the cheat period starts. So it wants to offload the battery, making me money all the way. And actually here, by the time I get to 11:30, the total is minus £4.06 to me. That's what it's cost me today. It wasn't like this in mid-February, I'll tell you that. It was the other way around. But this is really at the moment. And then what happens is it's charging all the way through this period here. While it's charging, I'm going from 4 up to 100. Then the battery is then being discharged. And then I'm starting to get some solar coming in when it will start charging up again until it gets back to 100 again. And then eventually it's going to start, well, there isn't enough solar to look after the energy I need in the house. So it's then coming from the battery, and it's a repeat show. The battery goes down to 4 again, and then the cycle continues. And this is all done for me. It's been done for me through Home Assistant and Predbat, and by a lot of help from people who have told me how to set things up. I've set some other little bits up here, so I've got a few quick things I can actually look at. In status, that's what I've drawn 32.05 kilowatt hours today. This is what's going on in the house. The other bits I was just going to show you here is, click here. It's a quick one on just some heat pump things. I've got this through Home Assistant, API. Just 5.68 kilowatt hours so far. And this is the last 3 days my heat pump has been operating at. So very quickly I can get a visualize what's going on when I'm using less energy, when I'm using more energy. This is my outdoor temperature. Now I'm experimenting with some other little charts I'm putting in. But I've got into this, I'm still getting into it, I'm still learning.
Have you got a room temperature as well?
Room temperature on here, I could
No,
I could put that in here,
brilliant.
but I haven't at the moment. I can't burrow back. You have to do bits of burrowing to and fro sometimes to I mean, this just gives you an idea of the playing around you've got to do sometimes with this. And just looking at it here, plan. Hold on, why is it going over there? Oh, right, okay. You have to play around with various bits. Where are we? I want settings. Settings, and it's what I mean, it does everything, this does. Emon, the one I want, entities, indoor temperature.
Brilliant.
There you go, indoor temperature.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all there. It's just all I need to do is to put this chart into the main part. That's over.
We're coming up to 8 o'clock, so I wonder if you want to wind up what you have to say, Rob and Damien, and then we take questions. Would that work?
Yeah. Can I just go on to
Oh,
one?
yes, do wind up. I'm not meaning you to cut off straight away.
Yeah. No, one other thing I just wanted to show you is that it's quite a nifty thing that again Predbat does, is that it's just come in. This is comparing different. These are actually all octopus tariffs, but I can extend it to other ones, extend it to Eon or one of the others very easily. And what this is doing is it's comparing the cost with the way that I'm using power, using electricity, of all these different tariffs. And at the moment, my current tariff, which is the Intelligent Octopus Go, is the best one here. And the worst performing one at the moment is a tariff I used to be on, which is Agile. I was on Agile for a year. And it was wonderful. But the wholesale prices, they give the Agile prices. And unfortunately, they've been going up a lot. They've been very high. And that's when I first started looking at different tariffs. But that's really dead. They've gone, this has been added to all the time, but it isn't from the faint-hearted, as Damon said. Damon, can you think of anything sort of critical we haven't mentioned? We've mentioned a bit of everything, haven't we, really?
Yeah. I think I think if they got any questions, I think it'd be a good time. I think that's ended it quite well there.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing. Here we go. And I'm back again.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. There's masses of comments in the chat, and some people may have asked questions that have then got answered. So if you'd like to ask a question, can you use the hand signal? If you look at the bottom of your screen, Now, where is it?
Yeah, I mean, while you're doing that, I can answer one or two of these really. Can you put them on shed down the garden? Yes, you can. You've got to get the power down to the shed. But yeah, you can do that. That's a good way of doing it. You can also put them on the ground. I think Damon suggested this. Very efficient way of doing it. I think at the moment you do need planning permission if it's greater than a certain square meterage. You do have to be quite careful there. What some people do is to put them on the ground, then they alter the angle with the seasons. And with some of the real nifty ones, they can alter the angle vertically, but also horizontally. So they can follow the sun around the sky. But you need a field of a garden for that, really. And you've also got the dreaded trees getting in the way, really. So
I think there's a few questions from people there, Rob, with a hands up.
Yes. So I'll take the people with questions with hands up. If
Okay.
anybody else wants to, along the bottom, there's a heart symbol called react. And if you click on that, then you can raise your hand. So Ian, what's your question?
Well, oddly, it's not Ian. I don't know how it's come to that. I'm Malcolm anyway. No, the question is, we have a Mitsubishi heat pump. How do you actually connect all this software to get the data out of your heat pump that you're displaying? Does it work with every kind of heat pump?
The open energy monitor stuff that was on the heat pump org, that is a matter of using their products. They come from like £400 up to £1,000, comprised with flow meter, sensors, and just a box and which comes preset, and then everything goes up online. Mitsubishi are a bit basic. You only can get input and output data. You have to get like your COP on that yourself, I think, on the controller. What you could do, I'm not sure if they actually have an API that you could drag that away from. That'd be something you'd have to maybe look at. There's a couple of good forums that Rob could probably let you know where you could be able to ask questions. They're grabbing the API is becoming a big thing for Home Assistant now, so there's quite a lot going on in that world. I'm pretty new to that. But yeah, I'm not that familiar or keen on the Mitsubishi.
Yeah. There's an open energy monitoring forum, which have got a lot of comments about different brands, heat pumps, etc. Some have got better controllers than others. I mean, the Wiesmann, I know Damon likes the Wiesmann controller. I sort things out very much on a phone or on an iPad. I can do an awful lot. I could even set the heating curve using that as well, which not all do that, are capable. So it depends on the brand. So you'd have to investigate there.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the person with just a number N39 whatever, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hi, it's Richard Noakes. I'm from Sustainable Hayfield. First thing is, that's so impressive what we've just seen there in terms of the complexity, sophistication, and the number of low carbon technologies in a house. I've not seen anything like that ever, so that was brilliant. I just wanted to make or ask a question and perhaps make a point. The tariff comparisons you showed near the end there showed Octopus Agile being not particularly beneficial, compared to the Intelligent Octopus Go, which I think you're on now.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify there. I think that comparison was done by taking the time of the day that you were importing from the grid and looking at what the tariff was from Agile at that time. Yeah.
It will have done to a degree, but it was also done that's done on a daily basis, the comparison. Right. Now I know that Agile had a couple of good days recently.
Yes.
Where the was right down to about 5p overnight, wasn't it, at times? Really?
Yeah. So I've been on Agile now for about 10 months, and you know, some days the prices go negative. Yeah, so you get paid to use, and sometimes they go up to £1 a kilowatt hour.
Well,
So
I was on for a year, and
right,
my average cost was 10p a kilowatt hour.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's only recently I stuck with it through January
yep,
and the start of February, but then I thought it's getting more expensive than the standard, and so
yeah,
I switched then across to Cozy,
okay, yeah,
and then I've gone on to the EV tariffs.
yeah, yeah. I understand. So my point is, if you were on Agile, yeah, if you stayed on Agile, and you showed us how the system was making decisions about when when you would use the battery, when you would use the solar, when you would import, when you would export, those decisions would be very different, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah,
Because
they would be.
yeah,
They would be different. Yeah.
I don't think that comparison with Agile is realistic. Yeah, because you'd have to have some different software that basically use an API to get tomorrow's half-hourly tariffs. Yeah, and when the pricing was negative, you'd have charged everything. You'd have charged your car up. You'd have charged your battery up. You'd have switched all. You know, if you could, you switch a heat pump on. So you get paid by at that point. So the profile of when you charge and discharge would have been very different on an Agile tariff. So I just wanted to flag that comparison. There we go. That comparison.
I'm just going to this because what this does is it also maps through the day for all these different tariffs.
Right.
So it's got Agile here, and I think it's actually worked it out as to what Agile would have done. It's a very different charging regime here with the costs here. So it is actually looking at the best case scenario
Right.
for each of them, which is really, you should look at these other ones.
Yep.
This is for the go. You see, it's right through there.
Yeah.
Very, very clever, isn't it? Amazing.
Very.
Imagine doing this yourself.
I didn't think they'd be able to do that. So I thought they'd just assume that the point at which you import would be the same, but they're changing that based on the tariff as well. So that's very.
Well, I think some are very crude. I like Cozy here.
Mm-hmm.
These 3 lower rate sessions in, what's the charge there?
Right.
So it is being nice and selective with what it's doing.
But it's optimizing the decision making based on which tariff it's modeling, yeah, which is
There you go, the
fantastic.
incentive to get into Home Assistant and PegBat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's great.
And one thing I meant to say earlier on is I praise batteries as being the glue that can hold a lot of this together.
Yeah.
Batteries are expensive.
They are. Yeah.
They are. A battery, you might be sort of £4,000 for a battery.
Yeah.
Each solar panel at the moment is about £80.
Right. Ooh. Amazing.
Wasn't when I had my system put up, but there we go.
Right. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Another
Thank
one
you.
then.
Now, Jane, would you like to ask your question?
Hi there. Yeah, we're in the process of just installing a heat pump, and got a question with regards to should we run the immersion to heat the hot water, or should we run the heat pump? So we've got solar panels as well. Sorry.
Run the heat pump and use the export excess solar.
Does that put extra wear and tear on the heat pump?
Which heat pump is it? What you having?
It's a Worcester Bosch.
All right. What is it?
Oh no.
Gas is in there. Is it? Do you know what gas it is? Is it an R290 gas or is it a R32?
I don't know.
Oh, so well, R290 will run at higher temperatures anyway, and it'll run a lot easier if it's the propane refrigerant. the difference is with immersion, you're only ever going to be 100% efficient. With a heat pump, you can
I'm doing
amplify
sound
that.
because my speakers went off.
You could amplify that free energy.
Um,
So your 1 kilowatt that you're getting in free can amplify into 2 or 3. So and your recharge time is going to be quicker because of the transfer through the coil.
Okay, so it's not a case of like it puts additional wear and tear on the heat pump, so hence
No,
you're better off not doing it.
no, I'd always go with that. The benefit with an immersion is if you've only got, say, if you was like an eddy diverter or something, they'll be able to trickle heating. The heat pump will have a minimum input power that it'll need. Whereas the immersion, you could put 100 watts into it, 200 watts, 300 watts. You might have to put 500 in to start the heat pump off. So in them instances where you're generating low PV, you could just top your water up as such at that point. But for me, I'd just always do it with a heat pump.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a session with these solar diverters that take energy from the solar panels, then push it into the
Like the eddy.
like these things called eddies, and it was all the craze to have eddies. But then when more people started getting heat pumps, it's more cost effective to I've got a 1 to 5. The electricity has been multiplied up by 5 each time into heat, whereas an immersion heater, it's 1 to 1.
Okay, cool. Another quick question for you, if you don't mind. We're also installing underfloor heating, wet underfloor heating. Is it better to have more zones, less zones, more thermostats or less thermostats?
How big is the house?
Yeah, don't know the square footage, I'm afraid.
No, is it like a 3-bedroom?
It's a bungalow.
Oh, right, yeah.
Bungalow.
You'd be better off just running it all open circuit, just no thermostats on it, just run it as one.
Okay.
That should really come into design though, because you'd have to make sure you've got the right amount. Underfloor's an art in itself. You need to know you've got the amount of underfloor and the floor to be able to. You'd have to look at temperatures. It's more than just yeah, you can do that. You might overheat some rooms. You might get solar gain in some rooms. So at certain points, you might need to incorporate something to keep them temperatures.
And that's not with thermostats in each room, then?
Not in every room, no, because you'd want some open volume. Because if you close every room off and the heat pump goes into defrost, there's going to be no flow. So then the heat pump will fail. So you need to maintain a minimal flow rate and minimum water volume, while also not allowing your house to overheat in certain areas. So it's kind of, there's not really one. The answer is to run it all open zone, but it's not all as simple as that. It needs to be designed to how you're doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. We have to get away from this mentality. With a heat pump, you get away from the mentality of only heating the rooms that you use. So any rooms you don't use, you turn the radiators off. Well, the trouble is those rooms get cold and they pull heat from the rooms that are next door.
Okay, but then we're due south facing, so it's like our south facing rooms are going to be warmer anyway. So
yeah, which is where you use a thermostat in the design to limit them rooms so they wouldn't overheat, so that'd shut off. But if you're limiting rooms, then you're limiting volume of water. If you're limiting volume of water, there might not be enough flow and enough volume for the heat pump to work efficiently. That'll then affect performance. It'll also induce cycling. So it's not just a yes/no answer as such. This all like comes in at the design stage of choosing the heat pump and choosing how the system's going to be. It might be that you need to add maybe a 50, 60, 70 litre volumizer, volume of water to allow them other rooms to shut down. So it can still come on.
Yeah, I get a lot of thermal gain because I'm south facing with a lot of windows that way. What I do is when it's sunny, like it's been the last few days, I open all the doors. And effectively, that then warms up. It makes sure there's always heat going through to the other rooms.
okay.
And that works quite well. Then when it's getting a bit colder, I've got shutters and I close all the shutters to keep the heat in.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Gaynor.
Hi, very interesting. And it's fabulous to hear positive stuff because I hear all sorts of horror stories about heat pumps all over the place. Anyway, my question is about the earlier side of these things. I'm thinking about having an extension on my house, and I was hoping to be able to incorporate a heat pump and solar panels and all lots of lovely stuff. So I got in touch with Octopus, and Octopus said, that's fabulous. Go away until you've finished your building changes and then come back and talk to us. But I was hoping to be able to, build a more cohesive or design a more cohesive plan of, things like where hot water tanks would go, where an air source heat pump would go. Is it right that it's basically, well, while you're on paper, we're not interested, but wait until everything's built, which seems a bit backwards to me.
That's the Octopus model, how they work. Whereas I'd get involved at that early stage in my process for them people. You do the full heat loss calculation because you don't know what you're doing until that point, and then you design everything from that point so you'd know what you wanted. Because it's no point in doing it after the fact, because there might have been changes that you could have made previous to that, and you've spent a lot of money on doing something.
Absolutely.
The Octopus model is they make your house fit their heat pump rather than it being tailored to it. That's how they're getting mass adoption. That's how they're able to offer. Octopus can offer variable tariffs as well. They sell electricity, so it's always kind of they're decarbonising on one hand, but they're not doing it so well with system performance because they're not really about that. As long as they're getting above the gas parity, they're not so fussed about it being tailored.
Yeah, they're also like many of the large firms. They're also going for the easy installs first.
Yeah, so their whole process of getting that, they'll come out, they'll just do a heat loss on a completed house, design it at 50-degree floor temperature, put either that one that looks like a grit bin in or the one that's the decking, and that's really all you'd get from them. So you'd be more tailored to getting someone out, even if it's just a heat loss it at this point, so you know where you are.
So I need a bit of a floor plan and then have a chat with somebody.
Yes, what area are you?
Whaley Bridge, over the other side of Buxton.
All right, yep. I'll put my email on the chat if you want. I know a few installers around the country, so I might be able to just point you to someone who's decent.
That would be fabulous, because
who you could have a chat with.
That'd be great, because another problem is getting somebody that's half decent and not just
That is,
take your money and run.
Yeah, I won't like to be a customer in this industry, to be honest, because it's so hard for you to choose.
You do need to know what you're doing, don't you? I've got a friend who got 3 quotes, didn't like any of them, and then got a 4th. So for a big project like this, Gaynor, I'd always get several quotes, but also personal recommendation. If somebody says, I know they're a good installer, well, then perhaps you don't need so many quotes.
I think it's that integration with the building work as well that makes it feel even more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, because generally what all the builder will want to use won't be really. It'll just be who they use all the time. You know, it won't be someone who's really specified in that area usually.
Yeah.
Just general plumber or something, and then they'll go to a normal manufacturer and get a design, and they're generic and not really suited to you, and you could end up in a bit of a bad way. So yeah, I've put my email on that chat. If anyone wants it and any advice about heat pumps, just drop it across.
One or two questions I'm picking up in the chat as well. There's some of you saying that Octopus Go and Intelligent Go, you have to have an EV. Well, you do, but there is another, maybe worth having a look at Eon. Is it Eon Next or Eon 6 Next, which I believe are bringing out a tariff where you don't need an EV, but you need a battery. So investigate that. There are some others. There's a lot more competition. Octopus are now getting a lot more competition from others, whereas they weren't initially when they brought out all these smart tariffs. So do have a look. The other unknown in this as well is that energy prices are going up in April. Now, what's going to happen to the tariffs? We don't know yet. So What I'm saying about my tower is 7p a unit. It may be higher than that. Depends if it's protected or not by octopus. So do watch out. We'll find out pretty soon, because that's from the 1st of April on that basis.
So it sounds like one does have to not just do your homework once, but keep an eye on everything as you go along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the industry's changing so fast. I think there's more stuff coming out all the time. And what might suit you at some point might not suit you at another point, you know. So it's yeah, unfortunately you have to keep on top of it a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, Stephen, would you like to ask your question?
Right. I had my heat pump installed about 3 years ago by a company which, when they did it, I realised didn't really know what they were doing. The company went bust a year later, so I've transferred to someone else to service it. But I'm not getting anything like the COP that you're getting there. I'm lucky if I get 3, and that's when the temperature's above freezing. I suspect it's been set up badly. Do you know what do I do about that? How do I find someone to do something about it?
What heat pump is it? What you've got?
It's the EcoDan.
Oh, Mitsubishi one, yeah. So
Yeah.
they're pretty basic, but they're not that bad when they run them right. Have you got the pre-plumb cylinder? What they've got?
I
Sort of
don't
the
know.
pipes already pretty. Usually, what you'll find with them, what are performing poorly, is they come with a pre-plumb cylinder. They've usually got an additional pump. And they just sit up on a even water temperature and not, yeah, they can be bad when they're bad. There's a few that I've worked on and got running better. If my email I've put in, if you want to drop me an email with your details and where you are, I know I'm lucky. I know a few installers around the country. I'll be able to pass you someone that should be able to help, but it might be a setup that needs changing. It might just be a few little tweaks. You never know. Sometimes you
Right.
just
Yeah.
set the curve right and set pump speeds right, and it's worked a lot better.
Yeah.
Or some I've gone in where it's had to be a complete rip out because it's been that bad. But until there's so much variables of what it could be. But yeah, if you drop me an email across, I can.
Thanks very much, David.
What area are you? Sorry.
Hathersage, Hope Valley in Derbyshire.
All right. It'd probably be myself that I'd recommend to be honest.
Well, that'd be good.
I do a bit out in and out that way. So yeah, if you drop me an email across,
Okay, Damon.
yeah, we can have a chat and take it from there.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a
No
lot.
problem at all.
Great. Well, if anybody else wants to ask questions, do use the React button. While they're coming in, I'll ask a question myself. You talked about charging the car at different times of day. Does that mean to say you have to have your car plugged into its charging point 24/7 so that when it's a good time, the system will say, oh, let's start charging the car battery?
Well, you'd want to, if you want to pick out just the best times, like I've got with the Intelligent Octopus Go, I would say on the app, I want it ready by 8 in the morning, say. Then I'll be allocated slots that will get the required amount of electricity, of energy into the car by that time, by 8 o'clock. After that, I won't have slots. I just unplug it. If I was on, but what I could do is I could say, okay, I don't want it like that. I want it ready for 5:30, which is the end of that cheap slot anyway. Then it wouldn't look at any times after that anyway.
But how does it decide whether to use solar during the day or to wait till the night and use the
Because there's a little control I've got on my charger that I've just discovered where I can push the energy right up to say, don't use solar. Well, effectively it's saying don't use solar unless the solar reaches this level. And I'm saying really, the solar's got to be above 8 kilowatts to be used for charging the car. So that means that it won't pull from the solar during the day.
Okay. But
Different
you'd
car
have it
chargers are
plugged
going to be
in during
different.
the day in case it went above the 8.
It
You'd
won't
have your
go up. It won't, because my inverter, my PV inverter, only goes up to 5 anyway.
okay.
And I've
Well,
got
thank you.
I've got a Zappi charger on that. Yeah. The other thing I was going to do here is I'll put my email address up on the chat. I'll put it on a different one to my normal email address, which just so that doesn't get sort of drowned. If anyone is reasonably close to where I am, I'm perfectly happy for you to come around and have a look and pick a convenient time if you're interested. Completely up to you. I've probably had 3 or 4 people round, just by word of mouth, really. You then get a feel. If I just say on heat pumps, the other thing some people are worried about is about noise. They make probably less noise than the flue of a gas boiler. They really are.
They're a lot quieter than they used to be. I think noise used to be an issue.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. And a lot of this bad press being given on heat pumps is orchestrated by the fossil fuel gang, because they see gas, anything to stop people going on to electricity. So they will rubbish EVs, they'll rubbish heat pumps, they'll say they don't work and all sorts.
Claire, would you like to ask a question?
Thanks. Yeah, I was just looking for an email from somebody from HVCA. So I'm just looking at getting an electric car, and I was just wondering if there were any issues I need to think about when choosing a car. I mean, I know all these sort of EV issues. Is there anything from the home? Because actually the email I got from this HVCA person was, I think he uses his battery in his Nissan NV200 in some way in his system. But what I've been reading is sort of maybe to forget all that and just use your home battery.
I would for the moment. In years to come, you got this thing, vehicle to grid and grid to house and all this. And the idea then is you'll be able to use your car battery as a battery for your house, etc., and for the grid, because most cars will spend most of their time sat outside houses anyway, not moving around. But the technology of that just isn't properly in place yet. There are some, I know Nissan Leaf has had the capacity to do this for years, but the chargers aren't there. It will happen. I know Octopus have actually got a tariff for it, but I don't know how many people use it.
I understand it's only available in certain parts of the country. The government are wanting it trialled. So you can't use the tariff that applies if you're not in those parts of the country. I was looking at it myself because I've also got an EV. I think what I found was more relevant, Claire, was there's various apps that you can use to control the charging of your electric vehicle, and I chose the Zappy one because it seemed to give more information.
Zappy apps, okay, it's okay. I find it a little bit messy myself, but I've moved on from the Zappy app, but it does work fine. Once you work out the nuances, the way to do it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know some people have been putting them in the chat, but if you'd like to raise your hand to ask them, that would be great.
I've been trying to pick up a lot of these. Someone says a noisy heat pump normally means a failing fan due to not level system. I think that's something I've heard from Damon. Do heat geeks charge for service? Yes. The heat geek guarantee apparently is 4.4 cop, which is good. I know they've got on the Heat Geek site, they have got something where I think they used to have a map where you could see where the local Heat Geeks are, which is useful. So, get my alternative email address. Are there any more questions, do you think, or anything we can pick out from chat?
Just one other issue that hasn't been raised. I had my solar panels installed a long time ago when there was a very good tariff, and there still is a very good feed-in tariff. It's now about 70 pence a unit.
Does that fit?
Yes.
Yeah.
I get about 70 pence a unit, whatever I do with it, whether I use it or not. So that's enormously good. But it means I can't sell back to the grid as well. So what I have is a solar boost. And I find that quite good because in the summer, when my panels have completely charged up the battery, what they then have is a diverter, which instead of sending that back to the grid, sends it to the hot water cylinder of the air source heat pump, and will carry on heating that up. And that works out as about, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something units of heat that you're able to store in the hot water cylinder.
Yeah, I know there are some people who were on FIT who have moved on to normal export, the 15p. I know
Right.
some people have done that, but I know an awful lot of people who have just stuck with the FIT for the array they had put up at that time.
Yeah.
So if they had more panels put up, that's on the normal export tariff of 15.
Right.
So you've got to really sit down with a calculator or a
Yeah.
spreadsheet and work it all out that way. But I know some people go one way and some people go another. So it's personal choice, really. I didn't get in when the FIT was still around, and I wish I had done.
Well, I think the fit varied too. I mean, I got in right at the beginning, and it was guaranteed for 25 years. And it goes up every year with the rate of inflation. It's now 70 pence a unit.
Well, Simon, would you like to ask a question? You're on mute, Simon. You need to unmute to be heard.
Sorry. Just to say, one of our future plans is to talk about feed-in tariffs for people, how you deal with them, what you do about your panels, what you can and cannot do, and how you can modify a system but keep your feed-in tariff.
I don't know enough about it, to tell the truth. I would have to teach myself by looking at various videos, etc. And to tell the truth, I like to think that I'm reasonably knowledgeable about this now, but I've taught myself really by watching videos and looking at on the web and all sorts. There are some great YouTube videos.
But as you don't have a feed-in tariff, you probably wouldn't be the best person. We'd have to find somebody who has one, who's got the same attitude to teaching themselves and can then speak to us about it. But yes, you do need, a lot of people are self-taught, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and the people who are self-taught with it have got to have a bit of a geek tendency, really. They've got to enjoy what they're doing in that way. I was going to say as well about the Home Assistant and the Predback. My computer for running that, there's a little Raspberry Pi. It's all on a Raspberry Pi that runs all the way through the day and night. It just purrs away. And I think the energy it uses is about 3 watts. So it's virtually no energy whatsoever. Tremendous little machine. So I just treated myself to a Pi 5 to upgrade from my Pi 4. So yeah, they're great machines.
Well, you're clearly a geek if you can start from a Raspberry Pi, but all power to you. We've got about 5 minutes left if anybody wants to ask another question, but you know, we don't have to string the meeting out if there isn't. We can wind up here. It's always good to finish early rather than late, isn't it?
Can I just ask, when
Yes.
you're saying that you've got to teach yourself, is that to install them yourself?
No, it's to inform yourself about the system.
Oh.
Rob got Damien to install his system. But just how to tweak it and all the stuff he's been telling us about the graphs and things he's set up. That's the self.
Well, I'll just let you know from the person who's been on the FIT since 2013, there isn't a lot you do. You've got a meter that reads what you've produced, and you send that information off once every 3 months, and then that's it. There's no tweaking it at all. But it doesn't come with a battery.
Thank you. Well, it's my pleasure to thank Rob and Damien. It's been a really interesting evening, and thank you so much.
I've got another question here. Someone's asked about how you feel about electric underfloor heating rather than a heat pump. Yeah, well, I'd say a heat pump because you've got the 1 to 4 with a copper 4, whereas if it's all electric, it's 1 to 1.
Yes, but you could use a heat pump to heat the underfloor. You can go, but anyway, Jane, you've also got a last question.
Underfloor heating, but I haven't actually used it because I've got 4 dogs and they need somewhere cool to lie down. So I've used my existing central heating, which is a log burner.
Jane.
Yeah, could you tell me what exactly is a solar ready tank? And is it just an expensive gimmick?
Solar ready tank. Is Damon around or has he abandoned me? Perhaps he's abandoned me. A solar ready tank.
He's gone, yeah.
Sorry?
He had to go and read some stories to his girls.
Yeah. With the right, so this is a solar ready tank. Is it a gimmick? I was going to get one of these, but I didn't do. I think personally, I think it probably is a bit of a gimmick because with the solar, I can always sell the solar back to the.
Can I say, is it to use the solar to run the immersion? Is that?
Yeah, well, effectively, I'm using the solar to provide electricity for the heat pump, but then any excess goes back to the grid. Then the heat pump can then provide the energy to go into the hot water at 1 to 4 or 1 to 5.
Okay.
Whereas if it's solar going directly into a cylinder, it's just 1 to 1. It's just like an immersion heater in a way.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
It could be that they're trying to sell solar thermal. So I've got solar thermal, which links to my tank, which I had to replace it with a tall tank with several fittings, so it could have multiple heat sources.
Could be. Anyway, thank you very, very much, Rob. I hadn't noticed Damien gone, so he didn't get my thanks, but nevertheless, thank you very much to you. And thank you, everybody, for coming. It's good. I didn't mention at the beginning, but you obviously all figured out that you had to go to the original order to get the link, but you clearly did, the fact you arrived. So well done, all of you.
I had to ask today.
And lovely. Thank you for a lovely evening.
Yeah, that's great. And I put my email address up here as well. So you've got my email address, and also Damon's got his got his somewhere here. If they want an email address, do they have to get this down from here now?
I will save the chat and then we'll be able to perhaps circulate the address and perhaps some other interesting points.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I'm just going to put into this heat pump monitor URL. This is just heat pump monitor.
Okay, I'll resave the chat and then thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.